Article 153, Sub-Article 3, where cabinet secretaries are mostly required to appear before committees of the House. I think in the spirit of this accountability to the electorate, we should be able to explore Article 153, Sub-Article 4B, which actually does require the cabinet to be able to furnish such a house with full report regularly. And in that article, the House is Parliament. And therefore, with that article, we can actually be able to support the President on this particular issue. Mr. Speaker, I think it is very critical that I now look at some of the issues that the President talked about that I think were good ideas, very well intended, especially looking at the bottom part of the pyramid in our country. But I think that some of these issues can be improved in terms of approach. Number one, the President did talk about the issue of improving savings for retirement for the people in the informal sector. I think these are critical issues. A few people have talked about the issue of restructuring NSSF to work for such a people. But I think that when you think about national strategy for savings for people at the lower part of the pyramid, it's critical that you always equate savings to investment. I think that you will agree with me that those who are not in the bottom part of the pyramid will always think about retirement as having done a few investments here and there that allows them to depend on that on those investments upon retiring. Therefore, I think that the issue of savings in NSSF should not be an issue that is depending on charity by government, but one which we can be able to find adventurous ways of ensuring that we do have critical investment plans. Second, I think that the people at the lower part of the pyramid in the country today are not saving, not because they are not willing to save, but, Mr. Speaker, it is because they don't have income. You cannot save from what you don't earn. And therefore, it's critical that our national saving strategy should be able to include the issue of improving income. Closely to that, Mr. Speaker, the President did talk about lowering the cost of credit. I think this is very critical because it also helps bolster the issue of saving nationally. However, I think that the approach that we have on looking at people like Fuliza is not the right one, simply because I think that this House, as well as the executive, should be able to commission a credit absorption and utility assessment to look at where do people at the lower part of the pyramid borrow to spend. In my view and my experience as a fintech expert, Mr. Speaker, people at the lower part of the pyramid borrow, one, to spend on consumption, two, to spend on working capital for small businesses, and three, to spend on buying assets that can be able to help them be better in doing their business. Just to give you a map of how this looks like in Fuliza, people who are borrowing between 1 shillings and 100, Mr. Speaker, are 68% of those who are borrowing in Fuliza. 22% are borrowing between Kenya shillings 100 and Kenya shillings 500. 4% are borrowing between 500 and 1,000. 2% are borrowing between 1,000 and 1,500. 3% are borrowing between 1,500 and 2,500. And, Mr. Speaker, the critical working capital class that where we should be seeing the huge borrowing in Fuliza is only 1% that is borrowing between 2,500 and 75,000. What does this mean, Mr. Speaker? It means that the crust of people who want to transform their lives are actually borrowing to eat, borrowing to buy Panadol, borrowing to solve basic need problems. We need to look at this very critically, and my view is that the President should be able to look at areas such as finance,